Hello, Caio. Hello, everyone.
Hi, Professor. How are you? Everything's fine?
Everything's fine. Yes. What about you?
Yeah, everything's fine. So,
Great.
good evening, Professor. I would like first to thank the presence of everyone here in this morning of cold Wednesday, in a quarta-feira cinza. So I would like first to thank especially Professor Luciano for give us his precious time in an Italian evening of summer and remind you of the structure of this meeting. So first, Professor is going to do his presentation around 50 minutes, 1 hour. So after this, some students will talk about the texts that Professor Luciano sent to them, and so, in a third moment, there will be a place for us to debate about the expositions of today. Uh, so, I would like to introduce Professor Luciano for you. He is professor at the University of Florence, and he teaches subjects as business law, banking law, capital markets, company and bankruptcy, and international business law. He was also professor of business law at University of Pisa in Italy too, and the University of Rome Tor Vergata. He was also visiting fellow at the Max Planck Institute in Hamburg, and he is author of articles and books as the management of the companies in the pre-bankruptcy crisis and the general meeting of shareholders and right to intervene. He is also one of the best professors that I've ever had when I had the pleasure to be his student last year in Florence. And his model of lessons gave us inspiration to do this study group. It was truly meaningful experience for me. And because of this, I wanted to share with you the incredible opportunity that is to having Professor Luciano teaching business law to us. So you have the word, Professor.
So thank you very much, Caio. Your presentation was maybe too generous, but thank you, by the way. Thank you very much for this invitation. I'm very happy to be with you today, even if it is only virtually. But this is something good about technology. We can be at the same place virtually, being physically in other places, and I'm very happy to share something with you as Brazilian young scholars, Brazilian students. As you know, I have quite a strong relationship with Brazil and its legal culture. I have been visiting professor last year at the Mackenzie University in São Paulo. This summer, in August, I will teach European business law at the FGV, Fondazione Getúlio Vargas, at always in São Paulo. And what is mostly important, I have so many friends in Brazil, and I am very happy. This is another reason why I'm very happy to share with you something about business law. We have a lot in common, as maybe some of you know. One of the fathers of your business law is one of the fathers of our business law. His name is Tullio Ascarelli. He taught at the University of São Paulo for a lot of years. Sadly, starting from the period of the deportation, he ran away from Italy because he was a Jew. And but when there is something bad in someone's lives, then there are good things that start sometimes, and this is really a good thing. So he learned a lot from Brazil and taught a lot in Brazil, but when he came back in Italy after some years, then he taught in Italy a lot of Brazil. So this is one of the many bridges, particularly mainly a bridge about business law between us, and I would like to remember it with you. This is something that is very important, I think. But and as Caio knows, during our lessons in Italy in international business law, but we found time to talk about this important scholar because he started thinking in a comparative way and thinking really in an international way, starting from this thought that business law and law generally is not something that has only a relation with one nation, and that diversity is from a legal point of view, is something that makes us richer. We have to be open-minded, understanding the point of view of people that come from different legal culture, and these different legal culture make us richer from every point of view. So starting from this point, I would like to share with you a little presentation that is particularly useful as we are far from a physical point of view. I will try to. I'm not absolutely the best in using the computer's instruments. So let's try to share not the document, but to share maybe the screen. No. Let's see how can we do it. Just a few moments. Okay, maybe I'm doing the right thing. Okay. Maybe, no, it is not working, isn't it?
It is working now, Professor. We can see your screen.
Okay, you can see the presentation. So please feel free to interrupt me with any question or anything you prefer during the presentation. This is a little chat between us, particularly because today we are talking about a very general topic, and I'm happy to start with that. As Caio knows, I don't like very much to talk about rules, going deep into the legal details of rules. I prefer to speak like more generally about general principles, and this is why I am happy today to talk with you about this general topic. So financing channels for companies, equity and debt. As Caio said, Caio told me that the level of the lesson today should be like in the middle, like for expert students. So don't be worried if we start from this basic topics, this basic concept, equity and debt, because we are starting from that, trying to say something that could be maybe new for you. Some of the things that I will say maybe are banal, so I will try to stay in the middle, and starting from really the beginning. So as we all know, business and corporations need money. So we know that corporation is today the most developed, but also from a numerical point of view, from the quantity point of view, we are talking about the most important organizational form of business in the world. So when we say that business need money, we say that corporations need money as the organizational model of businesses. There are many definitions of corporation. I think that this one is one of the most interesting one, and particularly because today we are talking about the financial point of view. So we are talking about a definition from the financial point of view. What is a corporation? We could say that a corporation, from a private law, a civil law point of view, is a contract. We can have different definitions. It depends of the starting point. Starting from the financial point of view, we could surely say that a corporation is a function that has resources, money as input, and money resources as output. So the point is, we have to have a basis of money of resources, someone who gives anything to the corporation with the final target to create, to have new money. But if you want to have new money, you have to have a basis of money. This is easy to understand and a very basic economical concept, but it is important to arrive to the point where I want to arrive today. So a corporation is something that helps a business person, entrepreneur, to create new money. This is the point. So if this is the point, and to make new money, we need the basis of money, of resources, of wealth. The point is that companies are physiologically indebted. So we as private people, as normal citizens of the world, are used to think of the debts as something negative. So you have debts, oh my God, you are in trouble. This is the basic point for us as I already said, normal citizens, private people. So this concept is not correct thinking in a corporate law perspective. So debt is absolutely normal, is something that is ordinary in corporate life, because without at least a starting moment of indebtedness, then we cannot create new money. So the point I want to start is this. So when we are talking about the financing channels, we have first of all to understand that debts are absolutely something normal in corporate life. And then when we have understood this point, we can go to another basic point. So debts, which kind of debts? This is the basis, really the basis. So the difference between equity and debt. We are always talking about wealth, making it easy. We are always talking about money, but there is something different. So if I give the corporation 5,000 euro in an equity perspective, and if I give the same quantity of euro, of reais, in debt, we are always talking about 5,000 euro, the same quantity of money, of wealth, of resources, but there is something different between equity and debt. So let's try to see it in a different way. I don't want to say in a modern way, but just in quite a different way, a way we as jurists are not so used to. Equity means shareholder. So let's go from an objective point of view to the subjective one. Who gives equity is a shareholder. So there is what the Latin says, a status. This person becomes a shareholder. Who gives the same money or a different amount of money? In debt, this person becomes a creditor. Shareholder, creditor. We are talking about corporation, but if we take the perspective of companies, of partnership, we could talk about partners. Is the same. So equity, and then the person who gives equity is a partner, is a shareholder, is a quota holder. The person who gives debt is a creditor. In the middle, there are many gray areas. So we don't have to think, this is really the basic difference, equity and debt. But, and it is very important to understand them just to understand the points, the legal points and the economical points. But I need to tell you that obviously between these two opposites, white and black, in the middle as gray zones, there are a lot of different possibilities. Why? The goal is clear. Corporations want to attract the maximum number of investors. So I talked about corporations as the most important organizational form for business. But why is it so important, and why is it so central in business life? Why do we need a corporation, or do we want to have a corporation to make business? Because corporations are absolutely top developed to attract money. So let's go to the starting point. The corporation as an organizational model where money arrives and new money is created. A corporation has this target. The scholars, the economists, the politics, and so on are trying to develop this model, and every day try to develop this model with this special target: attract investments. If we want to attract investments, we have to attract investors. And investors are very different. Every investor is different to another. There are some investors that, for example, are more risk friendly, and our other that don't like risk at all. Someone that can accept some risk, not too much, but even I don't want so much risk, and so on. So the gray area of the instruments, of the legal instruments that are available to attract money are a lot in the middle between these two opposites, equity and debt. We are not talking about this gray area, but I want you to understand that obviously if the target is to attract every money, every kind of money that I can, I have to give a lot of chances, a lot of possibilities, a lot of instruments, of legal instruments to investors. Maybe this is something that is very new for some of you. We're talking about a movie of the 2003, Bruce Almighty. In Italian, it is Una settimana da Dio with Jim Carrey. It talks about a person that is always sad and has always something to regret with God. So God simply gives all his power to this person for a few days just to make this person understand how difficult it is to be God. And there is this funny scene where there is the a famous song that says, "I've got the power." So he understands in this moment that he has the power to do everything. A lot of powers, big powers in his hand. So who is him in our perspective? He is the shareholder. The shareholder has the power, the one with the capital P, the one that takes the most important decisions in the corporation. So the point is that what I want you to explain is that there is obviously a relationship between the financial situation, I am giving money as equity, and the power situation, I have a lot of powers. Because we will understand that shareholders, they have a lot of powers because of the equity. Creditors, they don't have any power inside the corporation because of the debt. So this is a very important consequence in a corporate law perspective. The powers, the shareholders have the greatest power in their hands. Why does it happen? Why do shareholders have so much power? Voice powers, the power to change the situation, the power to take decisions. That's mainly in corporation, it means the power to vote in the shareholders meeting. The shareholders meeting, as you know, is the place where the most important decisions about the corporation are taken. The shareholders meeting is the place where the directors are appointed. The CEO is mainly appointed. Then there is the board of directors who decides formally who is the CEO, but it is the shareholders meeting that decides who the directors are. So you do understand that there is a strong relationship in deciding who the CEO is in the end. They are appointed, they are removed, the financial statements are approved, and the deed of incorporation is changed. So you do understand these three are the most important decisions in a corporation, and they are taken in the shareholders meeting. It means that the people who are there and who takes the decision, the shareholders, are the one who have the power with capital P. Why does it happen? Why the shareholders have the power with the capital P, the God power, as we could say, thinking at the movie with Jim Carrey of 2003. From a traditional point of view, from a private law point of view, we could say that corporation is a contract and the shareholders are the contracting party. We could say they are the owner if we want to think at the corporation in a very traditional way, as we are you have our same legal basis. We have a basis of Roman law, and then we have been very impacted by the Code Napoleon of the 19th centuries, 1804. So property was in the middle, was the basic right, the basic concept. Who is the owner of any object, of anything around us? The question was, who is the owner? So we could say that they have the power because they are the owners. We could say that they have the power because they are the contracting party. There is a contract. A corporation is a contract, and this contract is not complete. It needs to be completed. Who are the directors? We have a contract that says every 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, the directors are appointed. So we have an information that is missing. Who is the director? Who are the directors? So the contract is not complete. The shareholders are the one who complete the contract. This is a way of looking at the phenomenon. It's not wrong. There is not really a wrong way of looking at this concept, but every way is useful for us to understand a part of the concept. So we can say that they have the power because of this reason. We could say that they have the power because they are the one who gave the basic money, and they are the one who are going to risk the most. So as we will understand, risk is the key concept, is the key word in this perspective. And risk what? Risk their money, risk the thing that they financed. So we are looking at the phenomenon in a financing way. Let's go ahead. This is something that you can read in this very important book of 1991, Easterbrook Fischel, The Economic Structure of Corporate Law. This is one of the main lectures for the readings for the scholars of business law, because it is something that really changed, something that is really useful to understand the part of the problem, looking at the problem in an economical way. So in the first 90s, at the end of the 80s, first of the 90s, these studies started to be always more important, and we have some basic books that give to us a new perspective. I'm not saying a right perspective, but a new one that is useful to understand the concept. So the shareholders are the residual claimants to the corporate income. The gains and losses from abnormally good or bad performance are the lot of the shareholders, whose claims stand in last in line. What does it mean? That if the corporation goes bad, they are the one who will lose everything. If it goes good, they are the one who are going to earn a lot of money. So they are going to risk a lot. If the thing goes bad, they are going to lose everything. If it goes great, they are going to be super rich, as we know. They are going to earn a lot of money. They are going to earn everything except what? They are going to pay the creditors, and then everything that remains is something that can go in their pockets. So first of all, with the corporate money, they have to pay the creditors. Then everything that remains can go to their pocket. But there should be this first stage. paying the creditors. So this is the concept of residual claimants. When all the other creditors have been paid, then they are the last in line. The last in line means that if there is nothing, they get nothing. If there is one, they get one. If there is two, they get two. If there is 1 million, they get 1 million. So the concept is very different. But if you think about that in a different point of view, basically they are creditors too. Special creditors, creditors that stay last in line of the creditors. But creditors too, they gave money to the corporation, equity. We call this money equity. And they have an expectation, which kind of expectation? Having back what? Money. They give money hoping to have back money. This is a creditor. This is a peculiar creditor, a special creditor, but a creditor. You, as people who speak in a Neo-Latin language, do understand precisely the meaning of the word creditor. That comes from the Latin credere, believe. Creditors are the one who believe in something, and they believe, in this case, in this situation, in a business model, in a business project, and they believe, they hope that they are going to have their money back. So a creditor is a person that is giving to us a friend that is giving to us $100 and says, okay, I'm going to give you this $100 and I am sure, I hope, I believe that next month, as you said, you will give this money back to me. So you are believing in your friend, you are believing in your relative, in your brother, in someone, you are giving this loan. But the same is when you are investing in equity. You are believing in the project. So believe, hope, credere in Latin is the same if you are a creditor or if you are a shareholder, a quota holder, a partner. You are a creditor, the last of the creditors, in a different way a creditor, but you are always a creditor, a special one. I do repeat, this is not the truth. This is not, wow, I've discovered how does it work. This is a way to look at the phenomenon and to understand something about the phenomenon. I don't want you to think that the traditional way, the contractualian way is wrong. It's not. Maybe this one is more fascinating because it's new, you see. We talk about that we're talking about that for 40 years, but it's not the view of the Code Napoleon. So from this perspective, it's surely new. What is the point? Why do they have the power? Because we said that the shareholder, if they want to have their money back, and if they want to earn new money, first of all, they have to pay all the creditors. So you do understand, if they want to reach their egoistic target, having new money in their pockets, creating new money, become richer. If we are talking about corporation, we are talking about money. We are not talking about being altruist. We are talking about egoism in this perspective, economical egoism. I do invest because I want to earn. And if I want to earn, I have to pay all the creditors. So the point is that while you are following your egoistic target, you need to be altruistic. Because if you don't pay the other creditors, then you get no money in your pocket. So while you are egoistic, you need to be altruistic. And this is why you have the power. I give you the power because I know that you must, first of all, reach the targets, reach the needs of all the other creditors, because you are the residual claimant, the last in line. So, equity, debt, seen in this way, are son of the same mother. The mother is believe, is credere, is giving money, is believing in the project in a different way, in a different position, with different risks, but always believing in the business project. So, but who the creditors are? The previous claimants, the one that are in line before the shareholders or the quota holders or the partners. And they do have usually a fixed claim. So if you give 100 euro to your friend needs to give you back 100 euro. You are a creditor. If you are have a different way of thinking, you could say to your friend, okay, I will give you $100. You will give back to me these dollars in 1 month, but I want $2 more because I'm giving you a loan and nothing is for free in this life. This is how the banks think, how the banks act. So you pay to have a loan. This is what happens usually with banks that are the typical creditor of like private people, but also of entrepreneur. This is what happens usually with creditors. They know what they're going to have back. $100 plus $2, $3, $4, what is it? The interests. They know perfectly how much they are going to have back in 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, and so on. Usually, as we said, we are talking about these topics very generally. There are obviously some gray areas. So there are some creditors who have some characteristic that makes them not so far to the shareholders. So they risk more. Their claim is partially fixed and so on. So I don't want to make it too difficult, but as already said, between the white creditors and black shareholders, there is a gray zone that could be very, very big, very important too. So therefore, their will is different from the shareholders' one. Their needs, their will, their desires are different. Why their desires are different? Because creditors basically have a physiological aversion to risk. They don't want to risk anything. You know, if the corporation goes, okay, well, super or mega super, this is the same for them. They have a fixed a claim. So think about your friends. You okay, with friends maybe or relatives it could be different, but think about this phenomenon in a very cold way. It doesn't matter if with this $100 you are going to do something very special or something bad. What matters to me is that you give my money back to me. From a creator point of view, as less as you risk, it is better. I don't want you to risk too much, because if you risk too much, if things goes great, you are going to earn new money, not me. If things goes bad, maybe you won't have the $100 that I need to have in my pocket. So I don't want you to act risky. I want you to risk as less as possible. Because if the things goes great, I won't earn anything else. My $100 plus 2, 3, or 4. But you know, if we have to think this way, like creditors, we are not going ever to do something very big, important, and new from a business point of view. We need creditors. We need people who say, I will give you 1 million euro, and then you will give this 1 million euro to me back, plus a little interest. We need these people, but we need also people who think, I want to risk. I want to be super. I want to earn a lot of money, and to make it, I have to risk. No risk, no reward. So the key word is risk. One of the main differences between shareholders, equity, creditors, debt, is the risk. The keyword is risk. Shareholders are risking a lot more. And we need this kind of people in businesses because we need to take some risk if we want very new projects. Think about Amazon, Google, Apple, and so on. A lot of stories of super big and important directors, business people, entrepreneur, and so on. Their ideas were crazy at the beginning. They risked a lot and they had their reward. So we need creditors, but we need of even this kind of people who want to risk. They are risking their money. This is why we call equity also risk capital. The creators, they give debt capital. They want everything back, at least. The shareholders, they give risk capital. What does it mean? That they know that they can lose everything. They can lose their money. They know that, but they are playing this game because they want a lot. If you play at the roulette, if you go to a casino, if you go to Las Vegas, you risk a lot. And you know that. You should know that, at least. So the target of creditors and shareholders is different. Creditors don't want to risk. They want to risk the minimum that is enough to give their money back. Shareholders, they have a different target. They need to maximize the company's profit. And this is why we give the power to them. Because if we want to make it bigger, we need to give the power to them. All the things we talked about, they change when there is a crisis. We are talking about the physiological moment. We talked about the physiological moments. Starting point, the company, the corporation, the business is going great, super, okay, just okay, just leaving. The company, the corporation is paying the creditors and they are happy because they have been paid. There is some money, something remains after that, and this money, it goes to in the pockets of the shareholders. Everything is working perfectly. The system is working. A crisis arises. This is an earthquake of interest rules. Everything changes. Why? Because when there is a crisis, think about, for example, a corporation where the shareholders gave 500 of risk capital, and then the creditors, a bank, gave other 500. So this corporation has at the beginning 1,000. The corporation goes bad and loses. 900, 800, 700, 600. At least there is just 100. So starting from 1,000, 500 creators, 500 shareholders. Now there is just 100. So you do understand that me, as a shareholder, I am the one who has the power in this moment. But the risk capital is gone. And even a part of the debt capital is gone. So you do understand that from a juridical point of view, I, as a shareholder, am the owner. I am the one with the power with capital P. But this 100, from an economical point of view, just from an economical point of view, they are not of the shareholder. This is what remains of the creditor's money. Because if in the end, the shareholder is the last in line, is the residual claimant, is the one that is going to have something even if all the other creditors have been paid. You do understand that in this situation, the shareholder has nothing. The shareholders are gambling with creditors' money in this situation. So think again about this situation. The difference between the juridical perspective, I am the shareholder, I am the owner. If we want to see it in an ownership perspective, I am the one who takes the decisions. But from an economic point of view, it belongs to the creditors. Perverse incentives. Think that in this situation, the shareholders have not anything to risk anymore. They have lost their investments. They are gambling with creditors' money. So what does it happen? There are lots of studies that are very interesting, very new, that studied this situation from an economical and psychological point of view. So there is something that changes in the entrepreneur mind, in the shareholders, if we think at the corporate model, in their mind that changes. Perverse incentives. What does it happen? A lot of things. Just to let you understand what could happen. Asset dilution. So everything is gone. Quite everything is gone. In this situation, think about, for example, a person that has invested, a corporation that works with jewels, with gold. Everything is lost. I had like a lot of gold. Now I have just 3 or 4 pieces. What am I going to do? If economically they are not mine and juridically they are mine, I know that in a few, maybe these jewels, what remains in the corporation, is going to be useful to pay the creditors because they are not economically mine. What I will try to do, for example, is to take them illegally in my pockets and then, for example, give them to my friends, to my relatives, to my wife, to my husband. I am taking away from the corporation something that belongs to the creditors. But I have the power. I don't want to give them to the creditors. I want to give them to me. And indirectly, I give them to friends and so on. Asset dilution. Assets that are economically of the creditors just go away. The decision is the decision of the shareholders who try to take something that economically is not there. Underinvestment. I am afraid. I am very afraid. I've lost money all around. I have just a few money now. I don't want to lose this money. This few money, this 100 money, this 100 that is there. I've lost 900. I'm very sorry. Now I am just 100. I don't want to lose it. I stop the propension to risk. I'm not risking anything. I want them to stay here at least. But you know that a corporation doesn't work like that. If you are not risking at all, if you close all the windows, then it is the worst thing to say sometimes. Sometimes, if you want to make what is called as turnaround, if you are going bad, it means that there is something that you have to change. If you want to change the things, sometimes you have to invest. If you stop taking any risk, for sure, things are going to go bad. So underinvestment is something bad, and we don't want it in corporation, but it is something that happens from a psychological point of view, as already said. Over optimism. The situation is bad. We need something to change. But as already said, the business person, the director, the entrepreneur thinks, okay, things are going bad. Okay, I know that. But it happened also other times to me, to my father, to my grandfather. We own this business from ages and we had difficult moments. We don't need really to change something. We just need to have patience. No, you are not understanding how bad is the situation. You are thinking in an over-optimistic way, and you are destroying wealth. The point is that in this situation, with these perverse incentives, wealth, capital, is going to be destroyed, and we don't want it to happen. Overinvestment. you know that during my studies, I found in some cases in the US that some directors played with the last money of the corporation or in Las Vegas, really. The thought, very easy to understand, is quite everything is lost. I have just $1,000. If I go to Las Vegas and I have a very big success, maybe this $1,000 will become $1,000,000. If I lose money, I'm gambling with creditors' money. So everything is gone. This money is not mine from an economical point of view. So I don't have anything to lose. Overinvestment, playing in Las Vegas. But this money are creditors' money, and they don't want them to be destroyed in this way. At least they want to have this 1,000 money, at least. You do understand that there is a big difference between the interests of the shareholders and the interests of the creditors. Overinvestment, something we don't want. Transactions at an undervalue, something else that we can understand. I have this watch that has a value of 1,000. I am in troubles. I can sell this watch at 100, but you know, it has a 1,000 value. I paid for it 300 and I'm going to sell it at 1,000, but I need money. I am selling it at 100. I need money and I am selling my assets at an undervalue. I don't want it to happen as a creditor. I want you as an entrepreneur to act rationally, not irrationally. Just because you have to pay for your food in this week, you are going to sell all the stuff at another value. You are destroying wealth. You are destroying money. Total apathy. Something that is even, again, easy to understand. I've lost quite everything. And even the creditors have lost quite everything. I have a few. I don't want to go over. I don't want to continue. I just want to sit down or go in my bed and sleep. I don't want to use my time in this business and so on. But you do understand that day by day, a business, maybe there are some people that are working, some employees that have been paid and needs to be paid day by day, month by month. But if you don't act as a director, as an entrepreneur, you are again destroying wealth. You need something new in your business. You need the turnaround. We talked about turnaround. And you can't have time for apathy. So this is something very important too, and something we need to avoid: total apathy. This incentive clash with creditors' interests. It is clear. We already said it. We are going to repeat it. In this situation, there is something different from the situation, the physiological situation. In the critical situation, in the crisis, there is something different. You, as a shareholder, are not the one that is following his own interests and indirectly is following even the interests of the creditors. There is a difference, a very big difference between your perverse incentives and the interests of the creditors. This is why something like that happens. This is not this is a very important picture for me as an Italian, because in the Olympic Games of Tokyo, the man that you can see on your left was the fastest man in the world. We won the gold medal in the 100 meters race. And we won the gold medal even in the relay, the 100 meters relay. So you do understand why I choose this picture. But the point is that corporate law goes away and bankruptcy law arrives. new rules very different from the rules of corporate law. What does it happen? The entrepreneur is dispossessed. The shareholders are deprived of the power, and the power is given to the creditors. So these rules of bankruptcy law have this basis. You are not now in the condition to take decision, you shareholder. So there is this revolution. I take the power, you go away of your corporation, and I'm giving the power to the creditors. Why? Always for the same concept, risk. The money that are in the corporation now are not the money of the shareholders. They have lost everything. They are not risking anything. The risk is over for them. The one who are really risking now are the creditors. So bankruptcy law, with its special rules, give the power to the creditors. So everything changes. Equity and debt. Now equity does not exist. So the equity holder, they have no power. The power goes to the creditors. Of course, you know this very picture of Munch, the Scream. But I don't know if some of you knows the situation that wants to be shown in this picture. You can see on your left that there are two people walking lonely there. So Munch, with this picture, wanted. He said that he was walking on a bridge and he had a big depression, had lots of problem with alcohol, and that I don't know for what reason, but he was last in line, and these two people were going always in the same direction. He was always the last, and he felt like he was alone. So this feeling, and in this moment, he felt like this. Wow, this very bad feeling of being desperate because of the loneliness. This is the point. So we do understand desperation there. It is easy to understand. It's just something that comes inside you when you look at this picture. But what a lot of people don't know that it is the desperation of loneliness. Why did I choose this picture? Because we have this big problem in Italian corporate law, and as I've heard, we as the University of Florence guest a lot of scholars of Brazilian scholars in two moments this year. In the first moment, Caio was here in Italy, in Florence. We had a meeting with some professors of the organized between the University of São Paulo and the University of Florence, but we had also professors from some other university. We talked about financial market law, but 2 years before we had a meeting about bankruptcy law, and then again this year 2 months ago we had a very interesting, a big group of people from an association of bankruptcy law that came from Brazil. We had 30 professionals from Brazil talking about bankruptcy law. So I know that you have the same problem in Brazil. So corporate law is organized mainly for corporations who want to create new money. So for the development of the business, we don't have rules. Excuse me. We don't have rules for corporations that are going bad, for corporation in crisis. The only rule we have in Italy, and maybe you in Brazil is the same, is the recapitalize or liquidate rule. So we have the legal capital, and we know that if the assets goes down, they arrive at the point where you have two options. You put new money in the corporation, and then the assets goes upper, or you liquidate the corporation. There is an end, a finish point. This is a basic, easy, important rule. But it is impossible to have just this rule. We have a lot of rules about development and just one basic rule about corporation in crisis. So corporate law, I'm not talking about the rule of bankruptcy law, but corporate law, the law of the corporation, the organization of corporation, has really a few rules about crisis. But we did understand that crisis is a revolution in the relationship between debt and equity. So for sure, we need more rules. This is something we understood mainly after the big financial crisis of the 2007-2008, where there was this earthquake all around the world, and we understood that we had really a few rules about corporation in crisis. So we started to ask to ourselves, do we need the crisis corporate law? So do we need really organic part of the corporate law that is just about corporation in crisis, with its own rules, with its general principles? So we do understood that we have a corporate law that is thinking only about development, and we have general rules, and we have standards about these moments of corporation lives. We started to think about these needs, and I need to say that today we have a lot of other rules about corporation in crisis. One of them, for example, that is very important to us is a new rule that have been written in 2014 about the adequate organization of the corporation. So it is clear that a corporation have to have an adequate organization. But now our civil code at the article 2086 and excuse me 2086, yes, of the civil code says that it is mandatory for corporation to have an adequate organization with the target to understand if there are symptoms of crisis. So an adequate organization means also that we need to know, the organization needs to have the capacity, the ability to understand if the corporation is in crisis, first of all. So understand, know, knowledge. Second, if there is this knowledge, so if the corporation is in crisis, then it is mandatory to use one of the procedure that are structured by bankruptcy law to solve the crisis. So this is something about crisis corporate law, which is the point. The director, first of all, in an ex-ante perspective, they need to create, to organize in a proper way this internal organization with the target to know if the corporation is in crisis. If they know that the corporation is in crisis, there is a duty to use a procedure, a formal procedure regulated by bankruptcy law in order to solve the crisis. So this is something new, this is something more, but at the basis of these new rules, there is this knowledge, this feeling that, and we go back to the starting point of our discussion today, that equity And debt is something different. In a physiological situation, there is one relationship between the two. In a pathological situation with crisis, there is a total earthquake, revolution in this relationship, and we need even to have rules that are good to regulate this pathological situation. So, thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Professor. It was really clarifying your exhibition. I already received some messages of a lot of friends telling me that they loved your presentation, that you are very didactic, and everyone, I'm sure, enjoyed your intervention. So I would like now to invite Carolina, João, and Flavia to present their texts, and after this we can go to the questions and the intervention to other people.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Carolina. I study law, and today I will talk about the test, The Truth About Security Financing by the Professor Robert E. Scott. In this work, Professor Scott looks into a complicated ideas and discussions about the security financing in commercial law. He wants to understand why debtors choose to issue security debt instead of unsecured debt or equity. Scott believes that to truly understand security financing, we need to look past simple explanations. So it's important to think about how legal rules, market behavior, and the process of making laws all work together. And my specific topic today will be the economic reasons for security debt as versus insecurity debt. So, first of all, to understand the economic reasons, we need to see clearly separate types of debt. So, security debt is a loan where the lender has a legal right to a specific asset of the borrower, like buying or equipment. If the borrower don't pay, the lender can take the asset to the money back. For the borrower, offering the collateral can lead to lower borrowing costs and easier to access money because the lender feels more secure. On the other hand, this insecure debt, on the other, is a loan based only the borrower's promise to pay and their general ability to make money without any specific asset to tie it. Examples include overdrafts or credit cards for business. The risks for the lender is naturally higher because if the borrower doesn't pay, there's no specific asset claim. Because these higher risks, the borrower usually faces higher borrowing to cost to make up the lender's risk. So, the Professor Scott clearly looks into financial theories that explain why borrowers prefer secured debt. He asks, what's financial theory explain why the borrowers will issue secured debt instead of unsecured debt or equity? The main economic reasons for the borrower company is the lower cost of capital, more access to capital, signaling advances for the lender. So I will explain one on one. Lower cost of the capital is having a collateral makes the lender see less risks, which leads to better interest for raters. This makes it cheaper for the company to get money. More access to the capital. For new or smaller companies, of the little credit history, offering collateral is often needed to get big loans. Secured debt opens the door and an important founding. Signaling. Given the strong collateral can act a powerful signal to market and leaders. It shows the company is confident in the product, into its ability to pay back, showing the truthworthiness. Can I say right? Excuse me for my English. At least advance for the lender. As mentioned before, The main advantage is the sharp drop in the default risk to right to pay the first secured assets of a company falls, which is very important to save and need investment. So I need to complete the choice between debt and equity is a core part of the company's capital structure, and this decision is big effects in corporate law. Debt is equity, different rights. Remember, debt means a fixed pay to interest and principal lenders to get paid first and company goes, especially security lenders. On the other hand, equity means the own and pass of company. Shareholders can share the profits and losses and can vote important decisions, but they are the less to get paid for the company is closed down. What is the impact in the corporate law and government? Risk perspective. Financing tools directly change how investors can potential lenders to see the company's risks. This affects the market and valuing investment decisions. And the corporate governance debt, especially secured debt, can make with convents, special convents is like special rules in the loan agreement. These rules can limit what managers can do and affect the company big decisions, directly impacting how companies run. In shortly, the company decision can security debt is not a random. It drives to be clear economic reason to get the best cost and access money. However, this choice deeply affects the company and capital structure, how the market see its risk, and complicate power and rights between shareholders and lenders. They're all key parts of understanding corporate law. And thanks all for your attention. And I'm open to any question, but João will continue the presentation now. Thanks for all. João, can you listen to me? João,
it's a problem with my mic. Now you can hear, right? Okay. Thank you, Carolina, for your clarifying explanation. And I will continuing with Charles with hard text. I will be talking about the debt and how it shapes corporate governance. So in shortly in this presentation, I will pass through some questions that Charles raised in the text. The big idea here is to explore how, again, debt is more than just a loan and how it is an active and important to lever how companies are run. So I would take a look at how the role of debt has evolved from its traditional framing and to a dynamic market-driven governance mechanism. So yeah, this shift is fundamentally changed the balance between equity and debt and how companies nowadays can choose whether to get a loan or to raise their equity value. Okay, so let's get started from the beginning, the traditional model, how loans and debt were historically seen. So basically, the borrowers, they used to be watchful guardians, as I can say that. They were there to look to the companies and mainly to reduce agency costs. So agency costs are those conflicts between the shareholders and the executives mainly. And so the lenders that were mainly banks actually as a crucial monitors to minimize those agency costs. That is the conflict between interests, between managers, shareholders, debt holders. This is very important how lenders used to act in the past. So the debt was the main tool of debt was the reliance that the lenders had on the borrowers and the basic promise to make their principal interest that was to get their money back. So they used to have tools such as covenants that Charles Witt had named as tripwires. Um, and that was the tools that they had to shape how the companies used to use that money. So most debt was private back then, private and illiquid, meaning that the bank held the loan until was repaid. So this lack of an easy exit forced banks to engage in an intensive and indirect monitoring of the companies they lend to. So that's how the banks worked as a watchful guardians, as I said. And I don't want to be repetitive, but it's very important that we have these in mind, that these guardrails, that covenants or specific rules in those loan agreements will use to control the borrower behavior, like preventing excess risk taking, as Professor said, like those perversive actions, and or even jeopardizing their collateral. So the covenants were mainly used to prevent that. Just take a water because today in São Paulo is very cold, and I start talking and my mouth gets dry. So sorry. Oops. Okay, so this great transformation that Charles Witt had addresses in his talks start back in the 1970s to the 1980s, that an increased competition and deregulation transformed the private credit market. So this transformation began in the credit market. It didn't begin in law, because the credit market is ahead of lawmaking. So we got to bear this in mind. This is very important. The collateralized loans obligation, the CLOs, that are illiquid loans, were pulled together and sold off in slices to various investors. So in the traditional framing, I explained that debts were illiquid, so they could not be resold. They were held to the bank until they were repaid. But with this credit transformation, the collateralized loan obligations start to be sold because they are not liquid now. So these instruments, such as credit default swaps, act like insurance, allowing the lenders to transfer the risk of the borrower to someone else without selling exactly the loan. So this was a type of mechanism that the credit market created to evolve the role of debt. And also, it's important to point out that in this decade, 70s and 80s, it started the loan syndicalization. The syndication, which is basically when a group of banks like get together to loan money instead of one bank loaning to one company. So very large loans started to be provided by a group of lenders instead of a single bank, and it resulted in a diversifying risk to each lender. So this is also a shifting paradox that happened in the 1780s. So the impact of this change is these changes made much easier for the lenders to sell or to hedge their risks, to foresee their risks. And as a result, the incentive for an intensive and a more direct monitoring by any single lender decreased in a significant way, because in the traditional framings, the banks had to be like spending a lot of money trying to control the covenants, see if the covenants were being executed by the borrower, and it's very much expensive. Sometimes it's even hard to do it, because how you can be inside the company seeing if the company's like executing all the covenants, it's not I would say useful back in the end of the day. So the covenant shift, it's also important in how corporate governance start being a way to shape the role of debt inside companies. So the covenant shift, I would say, is an exit option. So the lenders became less reliant on strict covenants, and the covenants became more loose and less frequent. And that's when the reliance and the reputation of the companies start to be very much important. So how companies do that? In some loan agreements, as a professor said, the creditors have less power than the equity, the shareholders, because they don't have the power to decide. But in some agreements, some contracts can dispose that if the companies do not respect or follow some strict clauses, the creditors will have the power to act each and have the power to decide the company's future in some aspects, not in general, of course. So this the new reality shift from direct oversight by a single bank to a more collective ascertainment by the entire market, as I said, and that has evolved from a simple obligation to be a very sophisticated and a market-driven governance system. And yeah, that's it. I think I extended a bit more than I could. And I think Flavia will now complete with the third tax. Flavia, are you here?
Yes. Well, hello everyone. My name is Flavia. First, I would like to congratulate João and Carolina for the presentations. It was really clarifying. Well, I am going to talk a little bit about the agency cost of overvalued equity and the current state of corporate finance, text by Michael Jensen. The idea is state the phenomenon of overvalued equity as one that distorts managerial incentives and governance structures in ways that threaten long-term value. I think the idea of the three texts that were said today is that corporate finance is not just a way of financing, but it also influences corporate governance very intensely. So Jensen's core argument is the fact that overvaluation itself, so higher prices for equity is not itself a problem, but the problems is where it creates a mismatch between market expectations and the actual firm performance. So managers will tend to want to sustain an illusion of overvalued equity. So why would they want to sustain the illusion? Because it gives access to cheaper capital. As Professor said, the creditors have a physiological aversion to risk. So when you have overvaluation, it creates the illusion of lower risk for creditors and more certain repayment. So they will always have cheaper access to that capital. It gives overcompensation for executives. So managers will want themselves to win more money when their income is equity based. And it's also, of course, attractive for investors. If you have stock that has higher prices, it gives the illusion of a better performance. So you want to invest in that company. So the means for the overvaluation of equity is one, the manipulation of earnings. So one of the examples that Jensen brings is when the company states their income as, for example, they sell a product. So they produce that product and they want to sell it. They'll state the income as the ones that were produced and not the ones that were actually sold and the cash flow that was created with it. So you manipulate what is actual earning and you create that overvaluation. Optimistic, unreal projections, and the walk down strategy by analysts. Analysts and external auditors, they'll have this action on overvaluation when they do the walk down strategy. They create a performance based provision that will be very good for the end of fiscal exercise. But when they're close to the actual ending, they will lower down the expectations. So the company will always beat the expectations. So that creates overvaluation because you see a company that is always meeting the provisions by analysts and auditors. So you think that it has good performance when it actually maybe doesn't. What does this lead to? What are the actual problems with that overvaluation? It's first short-termism on value. So value is not based on the longevity of the company, it's always based on how much is worth on a short term. Inefficient capital allocation. So we will always be allocating capital and time and whatever in overvaluating the equity instead of allocating capital in other actual important things. And in some cases that Jensen brings fraud, especially by managers, and collapse of the company. He brings some empirical evidence of the overvaluation. So he talks about Enron, WorldCom, eToys, Nortel, and other companies that have used overvaluation in the past. And the one that brings me more attention is eToys. It did an irrational expansion based on inflated market valuation. So eToys expanded by buying other companies with equity. So it did M&A transactions, and for the payment for the other companies was based on equity and not cash, but it was based on overvalued equity. So it's very interesting to see how this situation impacts not just the market and not just investors, but it also impacts deals on the other areas of economy, such as M&A. And how due diligence, for example, is not done on buyer, it's usually done on seller, but you always have the need for the covenants of the buyer. So it clarifies that it has money to actually buy that company. So eToys just expended based on overvalued equity and had no actual money to pay for those companies that it was buying, and it led to destruction of the company. So that keeps on happening, and why firms do rarely self-correct. The idea is that not just the artificial benefits from it, but managers admitting to overvaluation threatens their market confidence and executives' credibility. So in these cases, such as Nortel, eToys, and etc., most managers were even arrested for what they did. So it is the consequences for overvaluation are very serious because it is a mismatch between what the company is actually able to do and what it's saying it is able to do. It also conflicts with short-term shareholder value. And so therefore, as a result, most firms, they will delay the recognition of overvaluation, and that inflates the value of destruction. So Jensen brings some solutions for that. He first distinguishes value resetting and value destruction. The idea is that when you see overvaluation and you go for resetting, which is acknowledging the reality of the firm and bringing down stock value, you prevent from destruction. So that is one of the ways of preventing from it. Also, the governance reforms the shift focus from stock price to firm value. So you have the actual stock price short term and the firm value as a general thing. So when you shift the focus to firm value, you have more incentives to that value in general and not just hiring the prices of stock. And also stronger incentives for alignment for long-term strategy. And based on what João and Carolina bring, debt as a governance tool is an alternative for finance strategy. So besides from what Jensen brings, debt is also an alternative for financing other than equity that can prevent overvaluation. So in contrast to equity, debt imposes discipline and requires fixed payments, which forces cash flow discipline. So when you have overvaluation, you're creating a speculation that is not actually real. But when you have debt, you have to meet those obligations that you have with creditors. So it's harder for you to create that speculation. And also, the market penalizes poor governance with higher borrowing costs, reinforcing that accountability. So, as João brought, this governance tool is very important and it can be brought with debt and not only with equity. And based on what Carolina brought, secure debt is also a way because, as I said earlier, one of the reasons for overcompensation of overvaluation, sorry, overvaluation of equity is access to cheaper capital, but secure debt is also a way to access cheaper capital because it lowers the risk of a capital. So it reduces creditor risk on another way, not just by seeming to have a better performance, but actually securing the repayment of that credit. And it's also a signal of confidence when the firms pledge valuable assets and it brings longer term value. So, well, that's my presentation. I don't know if I passed a little bit of my time, but if anyone has any comments or I'm open for discussion, I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you all. So, Professor, I have a question for you regarding what they said, what they presented. Carolina and Flavia, overall, they talked about the price of the credit, right? So, the secure credit is cheap, and also the equity is kind of cheap. But why do people, or at least in Brazil, and I would like to ask for you to share how does it works in Italy? Why do companies, they choose the secure debt, the secure credit to finance big projects? So we don't have IPOs in Brazil since 2021. The market of private equity is losing field. So we do normally uh, finance projects through the emission of secure bonds, which we call here debentures, um, and private credit as by banking activity. So how does it work in Italy, the finance of big projects? And why do you think that at least here in Brazil, people choose more to the debt channel than the equity one?
So thank you, Caio, for your question. This is not easy to answer to your questions because I think that first of all, there is not an answer that is totally correct. There could be a thesis about that, and some theses, and there are some theses. Secondly, because I don't think that there is just one reason. There are some reasons. So this is not easy, particularly because of that. What should we say? First of all, I'm talking about Italy, of course, because if this answer is difficult for me as an Italian lawyer, for sure I can't I can't answer about Brazil. But when I talk about Italian situation, I always in the end understand that in Brazil is the same. So with some little difference, but really the difference are not so big. So first of all, the rules about the equity solution are complicated sometimes and not good banally. So if I have some money to invest, I don't want to invest them in this perspective, in equity in this perspective, because the rules are not good. I can't really understand where I'm going to. Everything is not sure, unsecure, and this situation of doubt, of not knowing precisely the path I'm going to follow, is transformed in the reality in a non-investment. So I think that the first one of the reasons is because of the bad rules we have about that are not an incentive, but are the opposite of an incentive, a disincentive, first of all. Secondly, because opening to the equity means sharing the power, the one with the capital P. So even if I don't have, I continue being the controlling shareholder, the majority shareholder or the controlling shareholder. In the end, I'm having new partners, and partners have a few rights, but have some rights. They can, in Italy, as you know, we talked about that, from 2 years it's not possible basically anymore. But I don't want to make it difficult. But for example, I can go in the shareholders meeting, ask for questions, say what I want to, and so on. Basically, I have the rights of a partner. So I am a partner. I have the rights of a partner, not a minority partner, but by the way, the controlling shareholder must share some powers, and this is something that is not so good in his or her perspective. Another reason I think that is, so with a bank, I don't have such a problem. The bank is fixed climate, so everything is sure. Law on this kind of contracts is quite sure. I will write, thanks to very good lawyers, 300, 400 pages contract where quite everything is written. So there is just a few things that are not certain. But by the way, our lawyers will try to write quite everything that could happen in the future. So we have a clear solution for everything. And I have to negotiate it just with a few people, a few banks. 1, 2, 3, 4 banks. So if I have a deal with them, then I have the money. And I can reach the target, reach the goal. So I think that is, in the end, easier from a legal point of view, from a power point of view, to have relationship with very big creditors as banks and not with a lot of little partners. I think that this could be some of the reasons.
Okay, thank you so much, Professor. Does anyone have another question for Professor or for João, Flavio, and Carolina regarding their presentations? If anyone does, I would like to invite you all to open your cam so we can take a print of this first meeting and post on LinkedIn. It was really a pleasure, Professor Luciano. Really, really thank you so much for you being here. It was great for everyone to have your presence. So really thank you.
I'm laughing because when you talked about pictures, everyone is taking care of their hair. So I guess it's important. No, it was my pleasure, Caio. You know that it's the truth, and it was a pleasure to listen to you. And really, thank you even to the students for their great presentation. As you know, I talked about that even during our class. I always appreciate the students that have this kind of the initiatives, because it is too easy and too unuseful to be passive. But trying even to be active and to talk and to say something is always something that is useful in the perspective of a student. You learn even not only listening, but even talking and doing something new that could be even useful, always useful in your life. So it was also a privilege to listen to you and a pleasure. Thank you. Thank you, Caio, for the invitation. Thank you, every one of you.
Thank you, Professor. Really. So I'm going to take the print shot in 3, 2, 1. Okay, so people, thank you so much. We are seeing now in 2 weeks, and Professor, I'm going to send you the message, the photo.
Thank you very much, Caio. See you soon.
See you. Bye.